Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Spirited Awards Roundtable discussion presented by Pernod Ricard. My name is Leah van Deventer, and as a committee member for the Spirited Awards, it's my great honor to be moderating this panel today, all the way from Cape Town. Thanks for being here. The annual Spirited Awards not only give us an opportunity to celebrate the innovators and achievers in our industry, but they provide a space for us to connect as a global family. While the landscape of the industry changed dramatically during 2020, the spirit of the awards remain intact, except this year we've shifted the focus onto applauding the people, bars, and organizations that have helped each other through the toughest of times. To this end, over the last several months, the Spirited Awards regional committees gathered virtually to share how their regions had adapted to COVID-19 and identified emerging themes poised to push the spirits community forward. One such motif was that of digital experiences. So previously, virtual manifestations of physical store or product experiences were simply add-ons for bars, restaurants, and brands. However, during government shutdowns in 2020, these digital experiences not only became crucial for continued connection, but they evolved accordingly. In today's session, we'll chat to a few movers and shakers from around the world, the various regions, each of whom has somehow redefined experiences in a virtual world and grown their personal brands in the process. Our panelists will share not only what they did, from hosting digital classes to providing education and entertainment, but what they learned along the way. Their stories highlighted don't comprehensively cover the many innovative ways industry members have served their communities, but we'll trust you'll find them inspiring nonetheless. It's my pleasure to introduce our panelists now. Speakers, if you could just give us a wave as your name is mentioned. First up, representing Asia and the Pacific, we have Yao Lu from Union Trading Co. in Shanghai, China. Welcome. Next, from the Middle East and Africa, we have Ebenezer Tetteh from the House of Mixology in Accra, Ghana. Hello. For Latin America and the Caribbean, we're joined by both Sebastián Atienza and Charlie Aginski from Tres Manos and Bar Studio in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I see you've got a third friend there. If you would like to introduce them to us, please.
Yes, of course. His name is Gustavo Boques. He's our partner as well in Tres Manos Bar and Studio.
So he's monkey number 3. Hi, welcome.
Yeah, exactly. We are 3 monkeys.
Yeah. Right. So up in Canada, we've got Kate Boushel from the Barocco Group in Montreal, Quebec.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Kate. Heading to the US East Coast, we have Lauren Paylor from Focus on Health in Washington, DC.
Hey, everyone.
Then representing the US Central area, we have Angie Jackson, the traveling Alexa fixer from Kalamazoo in Michigan. Welcome.
Hey, everybody.
And finally, on the US West Coast, we have Kailee Asher from Barter and Shake Cocktail Entertainment, who's based in Phoenix, Arizona. And I realized I skipped you, Becky. Sorry. In Europe, we have Becky Paskin from Our Whiskey in Brighton, UK. I lost my place.
Everyone. Hi.
Cool. So my first question is for you, Yao. If you can let us know. So when Union Trading Co. was shut down, you took to the road, I believe, and you traveled all around China. Tell us what you did.
So, when the government shutdown happened, we've been in a very, very fortunate position where we recovered a little bit faster than everybody else. We've been open for for a much longer time. And, we do have, a certain reputation. And I realized that not all bars around here have, share that same luxury. And so we decided that, we're back on track. Why not share that love, travel around China and travel around the lesser traveled cities of China, the smaller ones, the ones that no one really ever goes to and, who might be looking for help. And so I just did a lot of seminars, kind of shared our experience in terms of how we recovered from the pandemic, some of the few things that we did, host a lot of Q&As, And for bars who are struggling financially, I try to do a few guest shifts for them, see if we can make some money for them. But yeah, that was the whirlwind tour that I did last year. I think I've spent a total of 6 days at home all of September, but it was a good time.
Fantastic. So how did you identify that you're positioned to address some of the needs of the industry during the pandemic?
I think that first of all, obviously during the pandemic, during the shutdown, a lot of people were expressing their concerns online. A lot of people were reaching out through different channels, trying to see that, what other bars doing here in Shanghai, how, what we could share to improve whatever position that they're in. And so that was, the first time when we're just like, oh, you know what, we're doing okay now. Why not, just go out and start answering them questions, start answering questions around China. And the easiest way to do that at the time for me was like, well, I'll just travel there and talk to them in person, see these young bartenders, up close. And I think that, as an industry, especially for this whole, craft cocktail movement here in China, it's a very, very new thing. It's only been going on for the past decade and a half. And so, it is a very young industry, and you have a lot of very young bartenders who had experienced this and who are, kind of desperate in terms of, the future of the industry itself. Everything was looking bleak, the place that they worked at. And so once again, we just figured, you know what, let's go share the love and, go talk to these guys.
That's awesome. So, I mean, your bar has been doing so well, 50 Best a lot, like since Asia 50 Best began. Did you manage to tie that into any of the seminars you did, or was it just purely a separate endeavor?
I mean, we tied it in a sense where we shared our experience of what we had to go through at Union. But the whole idea behind that wasn't to be a walking billboard of Union Trading Company. I didn't come in doing this whole thing with the intent of promoting our bar or doing ads for our bar. At the end of the day, what our bar, every single bar is different, and our experience, it might help other bars, but every single bar is unique. So for me, it was really just about what their bar was about, who they are, how we can help them. Union, more or less was kind of, in the background, just us using Union as an example to share experiences, but that's about it.
That's awesome. Great. Thanks. So we're going to move to Africa now. Ebenezer, you're with us. Hi. You interviewed various different bartenders and industry trendsetters on social media, I believe, from across the continent. Tell us a bit about that, please.
Thank you very much for putting me on this platform. Doing that last year during the pandemic season, the whole idea was to connect with all these people in the name of the bar chat. And the whole idea of the bar chat is to connect with most African mixologists, brand ambassadors, industry luminaries from Africa and beyond, to inspire, educate, showcase and share their experience, unique skills, knowledge, craftsmanship, stories, and passion behind bars to the world. The other hand too, I feel like another idea is to preach to the world the art and craft of African mixology, where people were trying to utilize homegrown ingredients.
Awesome. And what motivated you to use your platform during the pandemic?
Yes, during the pandemic, because then I felt like these are people who inspire most of the young bartenders in Africa. And these are people, I feel like them sharing their stories and what is happening as a trend in their country enables most of these bartenders to have knowledge and also stand more of like the branches of bartending, so they know the right direction that they want to find themselves in.
Sorry, Ebenezer, we lost you there a little bit. Would you mind just jumping back and going over that again, please? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to come back to you. It seems like we have a bad connection. let's jump on to Becky if you're ready. I'll come back to you, Ebenezer. Becky.
Okay, all right. So,
Ooh. we've got a lag here. Okay, let's continue. We'll pick it up. Okay, so Becky, right. So you've long been an advocate for breaking down cultural misconceptions about whiskey, and you've been running Our Whiskey since 2018. Now, how did you adapt your platform to fill the needs of the industry during the 2020 pandemic?
So for anyone who isn't aware, I co-founded Our Whiskey in 2018. Really, that was as a social media movement just to try and dispel this myth that only white men of a certain age drink whiskey. And I really just wanted to show the diverse face of the modern whiskey drinker. And we'd kind of been looking at ways of how we could evolve that idea and actually really make a difference when the pandemic hit. And I remember speaking to a friend of mine at 6 o'clock in the morning over Instagram and just saying how awful it was that all of our favorite whiskey shows are being cancelled, and we would love these spaces because it means it's an opportunity for people to get together and to really connect the whiskey community with whiskey drinkers. And I just thought, well, why not take that online? Why not launch a online whiskey festival? And now we're so used to having virtual whiskey tasting, well, virtual spirit tastings, cocktail tastings, like everything is on Zoom now. But at the time, it wasn't a thing. And somehow navigating all of the logistic challenges that were thrown out by COVID and lockdowns and all sorts of things, managed to launch the UK's first ever online whiskey festival with samples in front of people. We managed to raise the first year £12,000 for charity, and the second year we raised £13,000 for charity. Both those sums went to the Drinks Trust, and this is a charity which has been helping the hospitality industry get back on its feet, helping bartenders who'd obviously lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic. So that was really what I wanted to do with that. It was a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't think about it, I just did. And there was no thought process behind. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I just did it and leapt, and it seemed to do okay.
That's fantastic. So were people able to pre-purchase all the tasting kits? They could get them, I guess, via post, or how did it work?
Yeah, so we released 4 sessions over the course of a month. It was April to May. And we had 50 tickets per session. They all sold out within a week, which was amazing. And all of the proceeds went directly to charity. Unfortunately, it was restricted to the UK because nothing could get overseas. It was the same issue this year as well, but that was Brexit's fault. I still can't get anything overseas. It all keeps being sent back to me. But I hope at some point with future iterations of having an online whiskey festival, we'll be able to involve further countries overseas. I'm working on logistics for that, but it's something you learn step by step, and you just try new things, new ways. And I also think part of an event like that success is working with others. So there's no way I could have done that just on my own. I needed the help of everybody around me, my logistics partners in Scotland, help with social media, all of my influencer friends out there as well to help spread the word. Everybody had a part to play in that festival's success.
Oh, that's brilliant. So that kind of leads me to my next question. In terms of, I know it's not only women focused, your whiskey endeavor, but in terms of how would you recommend that women particularly can support each other in getting the same virtual airtime as men?
That's a really interesting question, because I don't think that it's just women's responsibility to get the same airtime as men. I feel like men need to be listening. They need to be on the same channel as well. It involves everybody realizing, if you're putting together a panel discussion like this one we're in now, and you think off the top of your head all the people you want to involve, then go back and look at that list and question yourself, is this diverse enough? Because what's going to happen is, if you're just thinking of the same old names, then your discussion is going to be stale, because it's the same old people saying the same old thing thing. So have a diverse selection of people, men, women, people of color from different ethnicities and backgrounds, experiences, because diversity isn't just a skin thing, it's not a gender thing, it's experience as well. So to have a really interesting discussion, we need to be thinking about everybody, include everyone in that conversation. So but it's everyone's responsibility, really. And I think also, so maybe from an individual's perspective, if you're asked to speak on a panel, a really important thing to do is to ask, well, who else is on that? So, you know, I don't want to be taking up the space of somebody else who I think actually has a right to be here, or somebody who has something important to say. I think that's something else to bear in mind too.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. So who or what inspired you during the pandemic personally?
Do you know, this is a really difficult question to answer, because I think so many people did such incredible work. I think everybody really rose to challenges that were put in front of them. So it's difficult to pinpoint one particular person. I know for me, so our whiskey has been inspired by trying to change misconceptions around who drinks whiskey. And during the pandemic, there was an incident where I raised an issue with how whiskey is maybe written about. And off the back of that, I received hundreds, if not thousands, of messages from women in whiskey all over the world, from consumers to writers to retailers, some of the best whiskey blenders in the world and distillers. And they all messaged me to say, thank you for standing up to sexism in the industry. We're so tired of it, but we feel like finally we're being heard, we're being listened to. And over the last few months or so, I'm still getting messages from women saying, now I feel confident enough to stand up and call out sexism when I see it. Now I feel confident enough to say to my company, to my bar that I work with, to anybody else I work with, this behavior needs to change, or actually I don't feel comfortable with this. So the people who've inspired me are those women who now feel like they've got voices. They've always had a voice, but now they feel comfortable enough to use it. So for me, they're my inspiration. So yeah, I hope that's not too fluffy an answer.
No, that's great. Thank you. Right, we're going to move to Latin America, to our friends in Buenos Aires. If you guys could please tell us, so Tres Manos is not only a bar, it's also a studio. Can you explain the concept to us, please?
Yes, of course. Well, since the beginning, we thought of Tres Monos not only as a bar, but also as a school. So we built all together a bar downstairs and then the studio in the first floor. And this is a beautiful space we have with 2 fully equipped classrooms, where we teach and learn from bartenders, and we teach as well to consumers to bring them closer to our industry. We have different courses and workshops, like the bartending intensive course, and others like whiskey tastings, same as Becky does, gin tonic courses, and different classes, so we can teach the industry. And now, if it's okay, Seba will give the same answer in Spanish to our Latin America community.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Bueno, desde el comienzo Tres Monos se creó como un bar y un estudio, desde donde nosotros podíamos obviamente desde el bar atender a la gente y desde arriba enseñar y compartir nuestro conocimiento, no solo el nuestro, sino el de colegas también, con los consumidores y distintos bartenders, tanto de la ciudad de Buenos Aires como del resto del país y de otros países de Latinoamérica. Nos ayudaba para educar tanto a profesionales como obviamente a consumidores. Desde ahí damos talleres y cursos de manera presencial al comienzo, desde el día 1, en nuestras 2 aulas que tenemos en el estudio. Damos talleres desde clarificados, fermentos, para bartenders iniciales, y de esa manera obviamente poder acercar a los bartenders a nuestro mundo de las bebidas.
Bueno, great, thank you. So can you please explain to us how you transitioned us into the digital space last year?
Yes, well, of course, it was a shock for us. We were used to having face-to-face classes and workshops. So we had to launch not only online workshops, but as well, we started our website, our e-commerce, where we have workshops, not only pay-per-view, but also free, to contribute and to inspire young bartenders and the community, not only in Argentina, but as well in the rest of the continent. And those workshops, those pay-per-view workshops, help us maintain all the jobs we have in our company, and as well help us contribute and financially support other bartenders that didn't have an income, didn't have a job at the time. So by signing up with us and having and teaching different classes, different workshops, they could have an income month to month that helped them luckily go through this pandemic.
Wow, excellent. You want to jump in, Seba?
Yeah, sure. Bueno, lo que Charlie comentaba era que obviamente al principio de nuestro estudio lo trabajamos de manera presencial, y obviamente fue un shock muy grande toda la pandemia y tener que transformarlo rápidamente y pasarlo a una manera web, online. Obviamente empezamos con las redes sociales a tener videos de forma gratuita, pero rápidamente también creamos nuestra propia web y tienda online, desde donde vendíamos todos nuestros productos, y no solo eso, teníamos cursos y talleres on demand, lo cual también nos ayudó a poder sostener nuestro negocio durante la pandemia, obviamente, que también es una pata importante, y los trabajos de todo nuestro equipo, y no solo eso, sino a darle la oportunidad a distintos bartenders, no solo de Buenos Aires, sino de toda la Argentina y también de Latinoamérica, de compartir de manera online su trabajo, lo que hacen, con distintos bartenders también de toda Latinoamérica y consumidores y demás. Tenemos cursos on demand, donde lo que hacíamos era trabajar con bartenders y darle la posibilidad de tener un trabajo durante la pandemia a muchos que se habían quedado obviamente sin trabajar, lo cual también para nosotros fue muy importante.
Gracias. And then the final question, could you tell us what community means to Tres Monos?
Yes, of course. We feel and we think Tres Monos is a community bar. For us, the community, our industry, our colleagues are really, really important. And that was one of the main reasons we wanted to build a studio, school, because we felt that the knowledge that young bartenders were learning, both in Argentina and in Chile, Ecuador, Paraguay, lots of countries in South America, was a bit outdated. So we wanted to teach, to learn as well, and to share knowledge, real knowledge from people that works in bars currently, that are day-to-day in touch with consumers, know what people want to drink, know what people want to learn. And that knowledge is what we want to share, and that information is what we're looking for and gathering in our studio. And like finally, our goal is to reach more people and to get consumers closer to our industry and to our passion.
Excellent.
Perfect. Ok, in Spanish now. Ok, valoramos, a nosotros desde el día 1 le dimos mucha importancia a nuestra comunidad. Desde el bar generábamos guest bartender para que bartenders de toda Latinoamérica y Argentina pasen por el bar y después también den charlas y cursos y talleres en nuestro estudio, que sea algo integral. Creamos el estudio como un lugar o un espacio para que distintos bartenders puedan compartir su conocimiento de una manera más genuina, más orgánica. Bartenders que están en la diaria detrás de cada uno de los bares o de los mejores bares de Buenos Aires o Latinoamérica, y obviamente que puedan compartir eso con jóvenes bartenders o consumidores para, obviamente, como siempre, seguir acercando al consumidor al mundo de las bebidas y en nuestro caso al mundo de la coctelería, para que puedan entender mucho mejor nuestro trabajo y de esa manera acercarse a este mundo que es tan bonito para nosotros.
Great, thank you.
No,
Right,
thank you.
Kate, we're going to move up to you. You're not muted, yes. So can you tell us, how did you keep your staff at the Barocco Group engaged during the shutdown?
So for Montreal and Quebec in general, which is the eastern side of the Canadian region, we were shut down between March 2020 and June 2021. We were essentially only allowed to be open for a wonderful 3-month period from the end of June to the end of September of 2020. So the first portion of the lockdown was, as was for absolutely everyone, was crisis management, launching into just like figuring out how to make money, what we were allowed or not allowed to do. For us in Quebec and for many other provinces across Canada, we were not allowed to sell any spirits or full cocktails during the entirety of our lockdown. So that was like, everything was really just that much more difficult. So for that first 3 months, we weren't really engaging as much. And, like even I was furloughed in my position, and we were just really focusing on very quick, like we created a to-go cocktail program that was all non-alcoholic, that was available throughout all of our 3 dining establishments, because we were at least, thank goodness, allowed to do takeaway food. So that was like what we were really focused on for the first 3 months. And when we came back, and when we were allowed to resume service between June and September, we realized the extent to which our staff had been yearning for connection during that entire time. I'll be the first to say it, like I live alone, and I couldn't see my very aged parents. It was like a really, really tough time for so many of us. And so during that entire second portion, when we were open, we had already, we knew that another wave was going to come and shut us down again. It was pretty obvious as we moved forward during the summer. And so we had already started planning for that next step. What were we going to do come early September, when we found out that by the end of September, we were going to have to shut down again. And I think we planned it really well, in the sense that we, like a lot of people were like, oh, we're just going to be shut down till the holidays. And most of us in-house, we were like, nah, I see it's going to be like probably May, June of 2021. And so we were like, okay, we need to figure something out. People need to be engaged. And so part of my job is education within the group. And so we kept me on for the second portion. We invested in that because we had already fine-tuned the to-go cocktail program. Even if it didn't involve spirits, we were able to keep some staff on board, as well as takeaway food. So what I did was, everyone had access, both front of house, back of house. We created a full education platform, essentially, or program, where every week I did cocktail tastings, comparative, across a spirit category. And so on, say, like on the Sunday, I'd come in, I'd have like a lineup of bottles, I'd create little mini tasters, identify all of them, create a little package. And on Monday or Tuesday, all of the staff had 3 different pickup points throughout the entire city, where they could access and go and pick up their tasting kit. And then on Tuesdays, we would have a full tasting session. And it was like really to be across full categories. I wanted it to be above brands, that we really understood the history, production methods, and really like fine-tuned our knowledge, but also our palates, and kept them sharp, and also allowed us for this really amazing moment for us to connect on a weekly basis and have like a few minutes here and there where we're like, we don't feel so alone in our circumstance, right? And because not everyone was back in school, not everyone had resumed classes. And so it was really, that was one of the things. And for it, I also invited, some friends from the industry to join in. And for some classes, they were led by myself, and others I would invite spirit special, like category specialists at the same time. So, like Canadian whiskey, we did it across the Pernod Ricard, or in Canada, the Corby category, because it was probably the widest breadth of Canadian whiskey. But Dave Mitten gave the class, and it was like really absolutely wonderful, because he is definitely Canada's Canadian whiskey specialist, right? So it also allowed people to connect with those individuals, and then it also allowed us, like one of the wonders was how they discovered that vodka actually has a full reason for so many brands existing, and that there really is a difference between your styles, right? So that was, I think, one of my favorite ones, to be sure, and surprised everyone. So that's what we kind of did in order to keep everyone really engaged. And then over the holidays, I also organized online parties with prizes, quizzes, and we did it in two separate nights, so that, you know, Zoom wasn't too overflowed with humans. And everyone really, really enjoyed that. You know, like people were talking about it for weeks after. And when they would come and pick up takeaway food, everyone like would chit chat about last week's tasting and like the upcoming parties or afterwards. So that was really nice. And I think that's really what allowed us, come June 2021, when we were allowed to resume service, which allowed us to have as little of a need to like get new staff on board, right? I mean, like obviously there were a ton of people that we couldn't actually get back because they chose new career paths, even though they stayed super engaged with us the entire time, or, you know, circumstance, they moved, or, you know, we obviously had a lot of the same issues that a lot of people went through, but we were able to keep a solid core of all of our staff throughout every single one of our establishments, both back of house and front of house. So that was, I think that is really one of the reasons.
I mean, it sounds like they responded really positively.
It was amazing. Every week for the tastings, I'd have anywhere between like I think the smallest number was like 19. And typically we'd run around 25, 30 people. And it was great because, you know, all of us had so much access to so many tastings online, right? You know, we could follow brand tastings, but we didn't necessarily have the kits. And so it's really just, you know, sitting and kind of learning on your own, and it makes it for a little less engaging. And not everyone knows about all of those, the various platforms. So it was really great for that. And it allowed me also to record all of those sessions. And now we have a Google Drive that every new onboarding staff has access to, and they can come to me and they can just request a tasting kit if they want to do a specific category 1 week or something at home. And I just prepare it for them, and then they take it home and they can do the training on their own. And it allows us to now jump back in to trainings now that dust is settled and things have resumed again. Allows us to jump back into trainings, and people are approaching a branded training in a very different way. Because oftentimes, if you're new to the industry and you sit down and you have a a Ungava tasting, you don't necessarily know fully or understand the entire gin category already. So it's just one tiny sliver of that category. And now they're approaching them with much broader knowledge base. They have better questions, and they're ready to also be critical of what they're tasting. So a bit more pinpointed. So that's really nice.
Brilliant. And finally, what did you experience in your region that has, or you think might evolve to help lead the industry into the future?
One of the things that I've definitely noticed since we resumed in June 2021 is that all of our collective hard work of online cocktail trainings, tastings with consumers as well as staff has really paid off, especially in our regions across Canada, where especially in regions where they didn't have access to cocktail kits from like full alcohol cocktail kits from establishments. It's that the amount of input that we've done for digital cocktail education experiences really kept engaging clientele and patrons. And I'm sure that everyone here has also experienced, the various messages from all of your regulars being like, I miss your bar, I miss you, I miss your service. And so they're coming back with a very different approach to all of the establishments, including restaurants, where they really did miss cocktails and understanding spirits. So I'm noticing in our cocktail bars, the ratio of cocktail sales versus just like a simple vodka soda has completely shifted. There are far more people ordering just cocktails there are also more people coming into our cocktail bars that also have food and doing the full experience of cocktails and food and pairings. And they're doing the same thing in the restaurants. They've like chilled back a bit on wine, and they're really asking that of our cocktail bar, our restaurant bartenders as well. So that's really interesting. They're engaging with cocktails in a very different way. And so I base that on really our collective efforts globally and all of the education that we've been able to provide digitally over the span of the last year and a half.
It's fantastic. It's such great news. Well done. Lauren, I'm gonna jump to you now. Hi, Lauren. You co-founded an entirely new program during 2020, Focus on Health. Can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yeah, it did not happen on purpose, I'll tell you that. Starting a business during the pandemic. So my co-founder, Alex Jump, is based in Denver, and I'm based in Washington, DC. And this was around the time she had just pitched Focus on Health as a program for a cocktail competition she was in. And I saw that she had been posting about it, and I had just gone through a ginormous health transformation. I lost 30 pounds. I was really taking better care of myself, feeling great. And I'm a huge advocate for, if something works for me, it's going to work for someone else, and I want to share that knowledge with other people. So I reached out to her, and I simply just like, hey, I like what you're doing. How can I support it? I want to do something similar. Rather than start my own thing, would you be interested in possibly collaborating? So I actually intended on flying out to Denver. This was before COVID was a thing. Then COVID happened a couple of weeks later, and I didn't actually get to see Alex until a couple of months ago. So owned and operated Focus on Health for 14 months, and we had just seen each other, which is kind of funny. But our mission and our vision for Focus on Health align. So it's essentially health and wellness resources for the food and beverage industry. And the way we do this is by working with experts in their respective fields of health and wellness, because we acknowledge, we're not health and wellness professionals, we are food and beverage professionals, but we understand the areas that we need help and support in. And by collaborating with these health and wellness professionals, we, kind of came up with an array of programs that we were able to offer virtually.
Great. And sorry, my cat is insisting on being part of the fun here. Do you have an experience or intention that you would like to share from this work?
Can you repeat that for me? I'm sorry.
So repeat the question. Do you have an experience or intention that you would like to share from this work? Something you've learned? Yeah. So I think if you have an idea and you're really passionate about it, you will find a way to make it happen. I tend to think of myself a very passionate person in general, and I just ask a lot of questions. I would talk to people who are already kind of doing things that are, like-minded individuals or just things that work. And I ask questions, and it's proven to be very helpful. I think as far as starting and operating a business, there are so many things that I still do not know, that I'm still learning every single day. I'm sure each and every one of you are probably sitting there like, yeah, girl, we agree. But I think that's the beauty of it. I'm very grateful to, be amongst the community of individuals who push me and challenge me to kind of think outside the box. It's like, cool, you've developed this idea. How can we make it better? How can we make it more inclusive? How can we make it sustainable? Which are things that we really look to do. When we're discussing health and wellness, it's really important that we're not just considering how that works for Lauren Paylor, African-American woman. I'm also thinking, how does that work for someone whose ethnicity is different, whose gender is different, who is just, global issues affect people very differently, right? So just considering also how these resources will work for someone who doesn't necessarily live in the US. And so that challenge has been very fun. We still have a lot to learn. But I'm very proud of what we were able to come up with. No, brilliant. I mean, it sounds like you've learned a lot. And do you have any idea how you might carry on, pull this into your career going forward? Is it something you're going to build on, or what's next? Yeah, so I mean, anyone listening to this and anyone here, first to hear a hot goss. So we're actually getting ready to figure out our first in-person event, because we still haven't done one. So we're planning it for early 2022. A symposium of sorts, I guess you can say. And the idea is that
again, we'll be doing it in DC. We'll work with local health and wellness groups and companies. We'll invite brands who have, like-minded missions and values, and just continue the conversation. I would hope to one day do it full time. So we'll see, to be determined, but I think it's something that's important and it's ever changing. And I just had a conversation with a friend recently, and she's getting ready to write a book, and she said something that just resonates with me every day. And she said, in my forward, or in the beginning of my book, I'm going to write, I hope in 5 years that this information is no longer relevant, because that means we've evolved. And it's true. So I think as long as I'm doing this work, if I can accept that everything we're talking about today is no longer going to be relevant in 5 years, I'm okay with that. So keep pushing forward, and yeah.
I love that. I see lots of nodding from our panelists. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to move to Angie. Angie, so you took to Facebook, Instagram Live, and Zoom to deliver courses. What did you cover?
Well, in the beginning, a little bit about where I'm in Michigan, known as the Great Lakes State in the Midwest. And we have many different changing seasons, and they can be brutal. We were shut down for a complete 90 days in the very beginning, of the pandemic, from April to June. And we had already been through a very harsh, cold winter. And people were itching to get out. And they were to the point where they were done breaking bread, they were done making masks, and they needed to be entertained a little bit. So what we did was on Facebook Live and Instagram, I went on and did live sessions. Let's forge the fridge. Grab a jam. We're going to show you how to make a syrup out of this. We did MacGyver mixology. For those of you who aren't familiar with that United States TV show from the cheeky 80s, MacGyver was able to make anything with a pencil, a piece of string, and a paper clip. So we had fun with it. We're going to MacGyver mixology today, mason jar mixology, because a lot of folks, didn't have tools, or they didn't think they had tools. So what we did was we said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to go, we're going to do cupboard cocktails. So what I would do is teach people, hey, if you don't have a jigger or anything to measure, you got measuring spoons. Let's convert and teach them how to use that. Let's use this piece that you might have in your kitchen to create this. So we had fun with it in the very, very, very beginning. Another thing too, because of me being in the Midwest, I was in Chicago for 12 years, and I'm from Michigan, and one of the things I'm noticing is we grow a lot here. We have an incredible agriculture environment here. And, we have craft distilleries. I'm a brand ambassador for a Michigan grain to bottle craft distillery. We make wine, beer, mead, cider, you name it. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was to bring the wildcraft aspect in, because a lot of people enjoy nature here. So it was getting outside, learning the plants, what we could use in our own backyard. Take the dandelion, the dandelion's a perfect edible thing to add to a drink. It is one of those situations where, okay, we're going to dig the root up. Now we're going to dry it, and we're going to turn that into a tincture for wellness later on down the road. So, it was like foraging, that kind of thing. So this whole thing kind of morphed from the live. And then I started we went through the summer months where people went back outside and they were enjoying it. And then fall came, and then another winter. And a lot of corporations who were seeing me on live were saying, we need some help. Our folks here need some engagement. So can you help us? So we put together cocktail kits. We mailed them out all over the United States and started going virtual with folks and teaching them, like even the basics. Like I remember this one class I taught was called Highballs and High Heels, a girl's guide to old man drinks. And that taught women, don't be afraid to ask about old fashions and Manhattans and those kind of things. And here, we're going to show you, and we're going to arm you with some awesome things to do here. So we had that option. The other thing that I did as well was kind of bring the community and bartenders together as well. We did the virtual bar stool. And what I did was I actually would invite some of my bartender friends that I knew were furloughed and were, needed money really bad. So what we did was we had them do demos, and I would kind of, talk people through it. But we also had their Venmo account set up so that, the virtual tip jar. So I was always pushing on that, I'm pushing on get your to-go cocktails, support your local restaurants, do the best that you can. So this whole thing kind of even morphed further from that to Zoom, where I was lucky and humbled enough to have the Michigan Economic Development Corporation reach out to me and say, hey, we love what you're doing in the supporting of the local farms, local craft distilleries, and just bringing everybody together in the community. Would you be willing to do this for us, for our virtual site leaders in other states? So I might be introducing Michigan, my hat here, to folks that are down, in Texas, and we're going to talk about what Michigan is great for. We're going to go out in the yard and we're going to look for the woodland, like the nature blackcaps, which are wild raspberries, taking things like that and incorporating that into your beverage programs.
I love the MacGyver mixology. That's brilliant. I think that's the name of a show right there. Right?
It was fun.
Did you find...
Go ahead,
Karen?
Please.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you found any particular platform the best. So you used a variety of platforms. I was just curious if you found one to be better than the other.
Well, I preferred Zoom. In the beginning, the live, Facebook and stuff like that was great because people were looking for something to do. They were bored at that point. They had Netflixed it out. They were done. So that was nice. And they turned to that. But as people were moving forward, they wanted to learn more. So Zoom was great because they wanted to learn the history about bitters. They wanted to know how to make bitters. So I compiled like kits of like bittered components, flavoring agents. And then with Zoom, I was able to put up, like the historical aspects, and they want to learn. A lot of people didn't know that, bitters are coming from a long time ago, and, they were afraid to ask. So, we broke it down in the components that they would understand. They were able to, take the ingredients, smell, feel, like a little bit of taste. But Zoom, I was able to put up documents, so the visual aspect, they were able to follow along and not feel like they were lagging behind. It was kind of from pre-K to like high school cocktails is a good way to put it, because you're dealing with people who probably aren't used to making their own sour mix. So we had to train, we had to teach them, it's very simple. We're going to go grab this and this and make it. You're going to love it. So it was one of those scenarios where Zoom really, kind of came out. And Google Meet was great for like, I used to have toddy tea time during the wintertime because we don't have a lot of sunshine around here during the wintertime, and it's brutal cold. So people were depressed, and, they're inside, they're alone. So I started having what I call toddy tea time, where we could get together, and Google Meet was easy for folks because everybody's got a Google account. All they had to do was hit, join, and they were able to talk about how they were feeling, learn about different toddies and teas, and just have a sounding board. I've been in the industry 25 years, I will listen, we'll talk, and even grasp that little bit of emotion that you can through the virtual aspect.
Brilliant. And tell us, it sounds like you've got full of ideas. What are your plans going forward?
So forward, I moved home from Chicago in 2012 with ambition to write a book, and I'm finally getting down to it. Here in Michigan, we celebrate cottages. We like to run off to our vacation. We like to go to our camp. We like to go to the woods. We like to go, and it's about the celebration of Michigan and, the cottages and how they feel when they go there. But it's also about woodland and what we have in our own state and our indigenous plants that we are either growing or they're wild, and to treat the earth better than we left it and to utilize these resources that we can. So that's my job. I'm almost consider myself like an agriculture alchemist anymore, as long as the traveling elixir fixer, but I'm always willing to teach if people are willing to listen.
Well, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to read it. Right, Kailee. You had both of your venues, the Century Grand and Undertow, were closed for 6 months in 2020. That's a long stretch. How did you use digital platforms during that time to keep your businesses alive?
Thanks for having me. So my husband and I have had Undertow for 5 years. We just recently hit our 5-year anniversary. And Century Grand opened 5 months prior to our closure. And Century Grand was 9 times larger than Undertow. Undertow is like a 460 square foot space that sat 32 people. So it was a big endeavor. And I had previously worked for a brand, an organic tequila company, for 5.5 years and was doing all of our on-site events. And I was one of 2 people handling marketing nationally. And I left my job with the brand to come on board and manage all the marketing and PR for our bars. And so when we closed, we had decided to close prior to the required closure, but it came, the day after we had made that decision anyways. And we were closed for about 6.5 months with one bar and 6 months for the other. And then obviously when we reopened, it was 30% capacity, 6-foot social distancing, a lot of other challenges that we had to embrace for probably about 6 months, maybe a little bit longer after that. So my business partner, my husband, and our other business partner kind of went into like this state of depression. My husband was like sleeping intermittently for 2 days straight. And I was like getting on the phone and brainstorming with friends and people that I know in the industry and saying, I think that we need to launch some kind of virtual happy hour series. The most important part is 1, continuing to engage with our customer base. And then 2, providing some education. And then finding some kind of alternative revenue stream. And so my husband had looked at me and he's like, I'm not doing this. And I said, you bet you are. I said, you are absolutely doing this. And I don't care what you have to say. And he was like, okay, fine, we'll try it out. And so, I do have to give a shout out though to Jackie Summers, because Jackie Summers is probably one of the first individuals who did launch this kind of virtual happy hour series. And he, along with some other people, were having other, bartenders from around the US and probably from around the world featured, and they were making drinks at home, and they was doing this virtual tip jar. And so that was probably one of the first things that I saw that kind of tipped me off, and I wanted to do our own version of that. And so it's really important to, I think, give credit to that individual for what he did and in our industry, and kind of was one of the forerunners. So we essentially, wanted to focus on how do we monetize this? Do we want to charge for our guests to come and watch the videos, or are we going to offer it for free? How are we going to do that? So we had decided that we had over 100 single barrel selections of whiskey that we had hand selected. So we had one of the largest single barrel selections in the country. And we were sitting on all that product, and it was sitting in our walk-in. And I said, well, this liquor is not doing me any good sitting here. We have the ability with our license to sell up to 30% retail in a calendar year. So I decided we're going to sell the full bottles. We're going to do cocktail kits. And then every single week on a Saturday, we are going to feature one of our signature cocktails or a classic, and teach people how to make those drinks at home. And so it was about technique. It was about history. So we talked about where maybe the point of inspiration was in a classic cocktail. We went through the history of that cocktail, and then focused on a specific technique as well. And then rolled through making the drink. And then the first happy hour that we had, we were doing all of these on Zoom. And then we also did them on Instagram Live as well as Facebook Live. And we had over 280 attendees. And the other great part about it was that we were able to access a lot of those brand ambassadors that we wouldn't necessarily have come to market in Phoenix, which was really, really nice. So it was really helpful. And we just worked with our brand partners to connect us with their brand ambassadors to talk about their brand. So there was also, less than 5 minutes of brand information in there, but then we were able to kind of rationalize through our customer base why we use this specific rum, or why we wanted to use this specific whiskey in these cocktails, and go a little bit deeper. So it was definitely interesting and fun, but for us, building those online stores was obviously key. And that the first 2 weeks that we had closed, we basically just focused on building online shops. We had used Square for our point of sale system, and Square has a plugin called Weebly. So that's the route that we took, because that was what we were already using. And so we launched all of our Undertow merchandise into an online shop, started shipping that across the country. And then we launched all of our liquor and our wine because we had an entirely natural wine program as well. And we launched all of that into an online store as well.
Wow, fantastic. Do you have any advice for other venues who might be considering having an online retail shop? Are there any
So I think,
pitfalls?
yeah, first and foremost, I think the most important thing is all states and countries are obviously going to have varying requirements and different licenses. And so it really is contingent on where you are and what you're allowed to do in your market. So knowing whether, you are able to sell to-go cocktails or full bottles retail, or if there's some kind of addendum you can purchase to your license. And then obviously with the online retail shop for the merchandise, there's no requirements around that. But then, are you going to extend the shipping cost to your customer? Are you going to eat the shipping cost? Thinking about those kinds of things are obviously really, really important. As I mentioned, we are lucky enough that we have a 6th license, and in the state of Arizona, what that means is we can sell up to 30% to go in a calendar year, and it abides by our license. They were not allowing to go cocktails per se, like, pre-made cocktails and selling those, which people were doing because it was essentially a gray area. But they recently passed it that they were going to allow to-go cocktails, and they start this upcoming October. I know a lot of other markets specifically changed that law, we're allowing bottled cocktails to go, and they have maintained it, so which is really nice. The other thing, which we sold those to-go cocktails as well. So the one thing that was really challenging, I think, for us was that we kind of felt like we had to continue evolving. We started with 280 attendees on our weekly Zooms, and then it slowly kind of trickled down to about 75, 80 on a regular basis on a weekly call, depending on the content. And the biggest challenge was like, how do you continue finding ways to engage with your customer base? And so we switched from full bottle cocktail kits to bottled cocktails. And then my last push, which was transitioning us to reopen, which today I have to mention is National Women's Equality Day. So we launched an all-female takeout cocktail initiative, and we worked with all female cocktail, bartenders around town in Phoenix. And we basically partnered them up with a national brand ambassador, female national brand ambassador, to give them kind of this mini mentorship. And we launched their cocktails on a weekly basis all the way through the end of the year. So it was a way to keep us kind of continuing to engage, but then also include the community as well.
Excellent. And one final question for you, Kailee, please. How do you think that the industry and its relationship to digital media has shifted?
So what I noticed a lot is that digital experiences, even just websites in general, were not kind of at the forefront for, cocktail-centric bars or programs. Restaurants have better web experiences, I think, than generally cocktail bars do. But I think a lot of people, their takeaway was, wow, this is, been secondary in our focus, because our main focus is always welcoming guests in the building, serving them an amazing, cocktail or food or wine experience. And because that's what we do as hospitality people is, we want to welcome people into our home and give them this memorable experience. But it really kind of brought the necessity for the digital component of your business to the forefront for everybody, meaning that, we've realized that it's become an absolute to have a great website or to be able to utilize free assets that we have. So just to share with people, Google, for instance, has Google My Business. They have Google Analytics. They have Google Search Console. They have Google Ads. Those are all free programs that you can utilize, right? Google Analytics is really, really important because it gives you an idea of who's visiting your website, what those demographics look like, your general customer base that's searching for you, how they're finding you through the search engines, and then being able to utilize that information to retarget your marketing. In addition to that, I think that, you obviously want to continue finding ways to engage with your customer base. So this panel has been great, because then finding ways to create this recorded platform for education for your staff, for instance, as Kate had mentioned, was really a great idea, because as I think we've rolled back into reopening, a lot of us have seen that we're short-staffed, and finding ways to make time to train new staff members is really important, but also even finding ways to continue to have passive income or alternative revenue streams for your business, I think is really, really important. So those are at least our general takeaways.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm going to circle back to you, Ebenezer, since we lost you before. Is that okay?
Yeah, Leah.
At the beginning, we kind of got cut out. My first question was that you interviewed bartenders and industry trendsetters on social media from across the continent. If you could just tell us a bit about that, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for this platform. I hope you can hear me right now.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So the whole idea of connecting with all these people, I call it the bar chat, was basically to clear some sort of questions. I knew in my country, most of the bartenders had a whole lot of questions that they didn't have answers to, and they were looking at globally how the bartending industry is really picking, like it's really, really growing out there, and it's a whole lot of things happening there, and they really want to see themselves, reaching out to all these people, sharing more knowledge to be more educative on their craft. So I realized that everybody was focusing on, they would just want to learn how to make strains, everything that they have in their mind, they couldn't reach out to because the connection wasn't there. So then I found upon inquiry that this is something that people would want to know. So people are looking at, for example, people like brand ambassadors, people like, a whole lot of industry luminaries that inspires most of the bartenders from Africa. Now, these people have a story, because the reason why I was trying to connect with all these people, not because of even racism, but it's because I really want these Africans to see that this is another African person who is really making a wave outside the country or even in Africa. You could see somebody who is a bartender and who end up being a brand ambassador. These are some of the things that are very rare in somewhere like my country. So then it had to be a way for them to also understand how to also work themselves out to see themselves to be whoever they want to become. So that is where I designed something called the branches of bartending, where speaking to somebody like Colin, who is an African, and he's the brand ambassador. He was a brand ambassador, and now he's a trade director. Speaking to somebody like Samia from Kenya, and speaking to a whole lot of people across Africa and across the globe. Now these people had to share their story to inspire these youth or these bartenders who are willing to see themselves to become maybe like a brand ambassador. And there's somebody who wants to become a sommelier. He doesn't even know how to find himself to become a sommelier. So we need somebody who is more like an African. The reason why I use African is because I want them to see them to be in their own image, so they can actually tell a story for them to understand their own language, so they can understand the branches and the journey that they need to be on. I always say to them that bartending is not just about being behind the bar and making drinks. It's about how you connect with people. It's about how you really focus around the area that you want to get yourself or you want to see yourself in the future. You understand? And on the other hand, another idea was to preach to the world the art and craft of African mixology. Now, when you're looking at doing the COVID or the pandemic season, Africans, we are more health conscious, way before even COVID even came out. Now, this was a way, because everybody's mentality was just about, like, you really need to drink this, you really need to take this so you can actually boost your immune system. So I wanted to create a trend where I felt like there are a whole lot of people around Africa who are really making wave outside there. And they have ingredients that are being like homegrown ingredients that you can utilize in making their own cocktails that will make it feel more unique in terms of taste compared to the other world. You understand? So these were some of the things that we were trying to create, trends that we can actually use homegrown ingredients, a whole lot of idea to connect with African mixologists, brand ambassadors, industry luminaries from Africa and beyond, just to educate showcase their craft and experience to the young ones or to the people who are willing to be or to see themselves to be like them in the future, showcasing their skills, their craftsmanship. Their story is one of the things that I think it really inspires, because I really looked upon most of these industry luminaries. I read a whole lot about them. Their stories inspired me. So it made me understand that the journey is not all about just, being behind the bar and just making drinks. You can actually get inspired by this person and know the right journey that you need to be on to become whoever you want to be. So the come up, I call it, the come up was something that I spoke to most of these industry luminaries to share their stories. How their journey began from bartending to become the global brand ambassadors and all that. And I think this was something that became more very helpful to most of these people who connected via social media. And it was something that was more very, very educating. And also it made them understand the lifestyle and the professionalism of bartending.
I love that. You've sort of answered my next question, but perhaps if you could just elaborate a little bit in terms of what motivated you to really get out there and push your platforms.
Okay, I think first of all, I would say my people motivated me to reach out to all these people, because I felt like it was something that they need. And aside that, what really motivated me was the increase of social media presence and relevance.
Brilliant. And
because I realized that the world became more.
Oh, we've lost him again. Just give him let's give him a minute and see if it reconnects. Okay, maybe we should move on. That's unfortunate because I was looking forward to.
Hi.
Oh, you're back. Okay, good. Sorry, we lost you.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say it's a pity because I have one further question for you, which I'd love to hear your answer. And I suppose because I'm also based in Africa, and I know that being in a continent like this, we kind of have some added obstacles in terms of finding a space on the global stage. So I was wondering what advice you might have for, you're obviously so good at it, in terms of people not just from Africa, but other developing nations, in terms of what do you recommend someone can do in order to elevate their profile and make their voice heard?
Well, I think first of all, aside being passionate on the job, you need to really understand who you are and where you want to see yourself in future. Now, you need to focus on the right stuff. You need to get more creative at all times. You need to showcase your craft to the world. You need to read a lot to connect with the right people. I think like having that in mind and understanding the branches of bartending will enable you to connect with great industry luminaries who will inspire, motivate, and direct you to achieve the right goal. And I think social media has been one of the great platforms that it will really be of help to connect with all these people. I feel like these people are always willing and are always willing to have you, to share with you and all that. So, the world has become so technology to the extent that everything has now become technology. Social media presence has really increased. I realized that social media has become more resourceful during the pandemic era. So places like Instagram, Facebook was the gathering place where many people go feel like they are connected. So with the present challenges imposed by the pandemic, an increased social media presence provide a way even bar owners and many other people connect with customers and others based in spite of the on-site closure. And also, I realized that my platform was one of the best the best place to connect with all these people that I've built relationship with for the past few years on social media. So unlike before, it was very difficult to reach out to all these people, personally, unless maybe you connect with them via email or if you have their personal contacts. But in 2021, maintaining a social media presence goes beyond just even making regular Instagram updates. You can have people doing weekly video tutorials that put the mixologists front and center to help keep customers loyal to their favorite bars. And you can also see videos that can be posted for free or offer as a subscription service to increase revenue. So many bars started offering digital gatherings like wine and whiskey tasting in conjunction with alcohol purchase to customers who can really follow along virtually. Brilliant. So I think this is, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you. I think that kind of brings us back to the beginning again. So thank you so much for all of you guys. It's been so insightful and so great to hear the different perspectives from around the world. Thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your wisdom. It's been wonderful to have you.
Thank you very much, Leah.
Thank you. And just a final reminder for everyone who's watching to tune into the Spirited Awards ceremony, 23rd September, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that wraps us up. Thanks for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Sarah.
everybody.
Bye.
Laurie,